When the children are asleep, we'll sit and dream the things that every other dad and mother dream. When the children are asleep and lights are low, if I still love you the way I love you today, you'll pardon my saying I told you so. When the children are asleep, I'll dream with you. We'll think what fun we have had and be glad that it all came true. Hi everybody, how are you doing? I hope you're doing well. My name is Juan, I am Just One Reader, and welcome back to another Friday Reads, in which I will casually tell you about the books that I finished reading last week and what I will be reading this weekend. So last week I finished reading Golden Hill by Francis Spufford and The Heart of a Dog by Mikhail Bulgakov, and Golden Hill by Francis Spufford is a book that I have already mentioned in my channel. I just posted a video talking about this book, in which I mainly discussed how frustrating the experience was for me. And I want to emphasize the experience. I think this book actually works. I think it's a book that is very well researched, extremely well crafted and constructed, and it has a lot of merit to it. Francis Spufford, the author, definitely should be credited for having written a novel that is actually very different and daring in many different ways. It is written in a style that feels almost alien to the kind of popular writing styles that we have nowadays, and that was partly why I felt very distant from it. But also, it's just not the kind of writing style that appeals to me personally. I have really learned this year in 2018, I have really learned about which writing styles appeal to me and which writing styles don't. And this is definitely the kind of writing style that I was able to look at it objectively and wonder at it, because it is really florid and pompous and really overwhelmingly beautiful. But personally, I was just bored, and I could not pretend otherwise. I would love to be able to say that I really loved this book because the writing was so lush, but I would be lying. I actually thought the writing in the book came off as pretentious and very condescending, and for that reason, I did not really enjoy or care for the characters or the story or the mystery. And there were some very good, fine things here that I could have potentially really enjoyed, but the writing just really didn't work out for me. So I didn't like it. I gave it 2 stars. After having read Golden Hill, I was in the mood for reading something short but of good quality, something foolproof. And so I went for Mikhail Bulgakov's The Heart of a Dog. Mikhail Bulgakov is a Russian writer. Mostly, I think he's popular or well-known for his novel The Master and Margarita, which I haven't read, but I just purchased a beautiful edition in New York, the deluxe, the Penguin Classics Deluxe Edition, and hopefully I will read that soon, in the near future. But The Heart of a Dog is, it has a wacky premise, and it's kind of, actually, if you think about it, it's kind of a magical realism type of premise. Basically, it's the story of a scientist who performs a transplant, and he transplants the testicles and pituitary gland of a dead man into a dog. Therefore, what we get is this kind of humanized animal, and it's very quirky, it's very whimsical, it's extremely political and philosophical as well. There's a lot of ideas discussed here. It's a very critical conversation about really big topics about class and work and the nature of humanity itself, and morality as well. So the fact that you can explore all these really interesting really profound topics in over, what is it, like, it's like 100 pages, 124 pages. That is really something, and I really loved it. I thought it was quirky and whimsical, like I said. It's very, very satirical. It's a satire, and it's interesting because this book was written in it was written 100 years ago. It was written, I think, in the 1920s, and back in its day, it was very challenged. It was very censored, and you can kind of see why. But something that really struck me about reading this book now in 2018 is that these things are still incredibly relevant, but also it feels modern. It almost feels like this book could have been written yesterday. It feels present and contemporary, not only in the topics and the issues and the themes that it addresses and the political and moral questions that it touches upon, but also even in style. It is very easy to read. It's very accessible. The language is elegant and classical feeling because it is, after all, a kind of classic, but it's not it never gave me the sensation that some classics have given me of having to work the language because it's kind of like a barrier. So this was just a great little read. If I were a teacher, if I still were a teacher, I was a teacher, I am not anymore, but if I were a teacher, this is a great book that I would like to teach. It's great for a classroom setting. Like I said, it is short, but it packs a punch. This weekend, I will also be continuing on with The God Delusion by Richard Dawkins, which is a book that is fascinating beyond belief, no pun intended. And I am going to read you some of the things that I have highlighted that I think are just splendidly well written in a way that is both very elegant and clever and really witty and fun, but also incredibly bold. And something that I love about his writing style is that he never shies away from carefully but boldly at the same time expressing what he really thinks should be said. And so I really loved this paragraph, which is the opening of chapter 2, The God Hypothesis, and what he says is, it sounds kind of daring and ballsy, but if you really think about it, I mean, hats off to you, Mr. Dawkins. He says, the God of the Old Testament is arguably the most unpleasant character in all of fiction. Jealous and proud of it, a petty, unjust, unforgiving control freak, a vindictive, bloodthirsty ethnic cleanser, a misogynistic, homophobic, racist, infanticidal, genocidal, filicidal, pestilential, megalomaniacal, sadomasochistic, capriciously malevolent bully. And then he says, those of us schooled from infancy in his ways can become desensitized to their horror. Yes. Then when he talks about the power of the untouchability of religion, how people in general, society in general, has kind of agreed that religion is something that you cannot address. It's kind of a taboo topic. It's something that you cannot meddle with because it's a very sensible topic. And he says, we must respect the other fellow's religion, but only in the sense and to the extent that we respect his theory that his wife is beautiful and his children smart. And that is actually a quote from H.L. Mencken that Dawkins uses to express this idea. And that's kind of the tone of the book for me, is just ballsy and bold and true and right, but really funny at the same way. Another one. A widespread assumption which nearly everybody in our society accepts, the non-religious included, is that religious faith is especially vulnerable to offense and should be protected by an abnormally thick wall of respect, in a different class from the respect that any human being should pay to any other. Come on. Another part that I really loved that was in the prologue, actually, he says, religious opinion is the one kind of parental opinion that by almost universal consent can be fastened upon children who are in truth too young to know what their opinion really is. There is no such thing as a Christian child, only a child of Christian parents. Richard Dawkins, I want to bask in your glory. No, I'm kidding. But really, he is awesome, and I am loving this book. It almost feels like this was written for me. So that's what I will be reading this weekend. Please leave your comments down below and let me know, what have you read recently? Is there anything you would like to recommend or not recommend? And also let me know, what will you be reading this weekend? Thanks for watching. I am Just One Reader.